PortGen Workshop, our virtual PortGen Workshop for architectural and engineering. And in the second hour here with us today is Carrie Ann Williams, and she is with Andana Consulting. And so she is going to be talking to us about building opportunities and being able to share your value to grow business relationships, which is very, very important for all of our professional services. So welcome, Carrie Ann. We're excited to have you here with us today. What we've been doing is if there's questions, people have been populating the questions in the chat box. If you're okay with that, or if you're comfortable with them unmuting and talking and just asking a question, how would you like to handle that?
Putting it in the chat, and then that's fine.
Okay, then if we've got any questions showing up in chat, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and tell you I've got questions, and then you can tell me when it's okay to go ahead and start asking.
Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. And
all right. Thank you guys so much for having me. As Tanya said, my name's Carrie Ann Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Andana Consulting, and we are a professional services marketing firm. We focus mostly on architecture and engineering companies of all sizes and working with all different types of agencies, both local, state, and federal agencies. So our company specializes in working with firms to understand their messaging and also, create proposals to win the work that they want. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you as small and mid-sized firms can really accentuate the value that you're bringing, and then how do you really grow business relationships and come up with a marketing strategy that really can work for you. So we're going to go through a couple of aspects of this today, and it's not really a workshop, but I did provide a handout that you all should have gotten via email that has some activities for you to work on with your team, or you can fill it out as we go today. Usually I use that in a longer workshop, but my presentation will give you some highlights on what you really need to focus on with your group when you go back to the office, or have some time over the holiday coming up to sit with it and work through some of these things. So today we're going to talk a lot about marketing and business development strategies. And I know you guys have already spent some time on that earlier today. So hopefully my presentation really augments everything that you've already learned and can give you some more tactics and ways to think about how you approach the business development and relationship building part of our business. Because architecture and engineering is really a relationship-based and team-based profession, right? Nothing really gets done in a silo. We always have a team of engineers and a team of architects and auxiliary support services to get our projects done. And so we always need each other to work together. And so if we have those relationships in place, then we can always maximize what we already have. So for architecture and engineering firms, there's some foundational marketing pieces that are always ongoing. And it might just be, cursory emails that you read or business journal articles that you read. But you start with research, right? You want to know where there are organizations that are buying what you sell. There, who's going to have projects coming up? What are the capital improvement plans? All of those things that you need to know in order to do business. Who are the prime contractors? Who are your competitors? What subcontractors do you need to be pulling in? You also have your business strategy, which is your overall, how are we going to do what we do every day? And who do we need to hire? And what work do we want to have? All of that strategy that's also ongoing. And those are the two foundational pieces of our overall marketing. And then that's informed by the top part, which is our value proposition and our corporate messaging. And we're going to talk about the value proposition and the messaging and how we use that and how we come up with that a little bit more. But those pieces, where you're positioned in the marketplace, what are you known for? As the previous session was talking about, what are your real specialty, unique niche things that you only can offer? And that comes from your people and your experience. So no one else has really done the projects that you've done or the way that you've done them. So think about your process, how you do things in your business versus, your competitors, or even the larger or businesses that you might work with. How are you differentiating yourself in that space? All of those things definitely then infuse your business development, which is, touching your clients, meeting new people, building those relationships, and positioning yourself to work on the proposals. And how are you getting your qualifications pulled together? And so this whole system of marketing are pieces that you need in place. That's a ton of work for a small business. It's a ton of work for a large business. That's why they have so many people that do it. And so part of my goal today is to give you some strategies and some tactics to apply to do this in incremental ways, and to engage your team so that you've got a foundation and some pieces that are constantly ongoing, so that you don't have to be thinking about all these parts all of the time. So I do want to start too with why this marketing activity is critical, and why it's critical now more than ever. And I've used this slide for years, before 2020. So it's always really pertinent to think about how you plan for your business. I think professional services firms, especially in the AE profession, tend to fall into the category of our cartoon here, where we're reactionary. We're kind of waiting for things to come. We're waiting for the RFPs to come over. We're waiting for an invitation to join a team. We're not really being proactive. But what studies tell us is that firms that are plan have 3 times more success at winning contracts that they want over firms that don't plan. And you might say, Carrie Ann, plans are crazy. Things come out of left field. We don't know what's going to happen in the world. We don't know who we're going to hire or what we're going to be doing. But if you don't have a plan of where you really think you want to go and a vision of what that might look like, then when something does come out of left field, you don't know how to adjust. So if you do have a plan and something goes wrong, you have a framework to use to make a decision. Do you want to go in a new direction? Do you just need to go around this obstacle? Is it a new opportunity that's coming in your way? If you have a plan in place, you're able to make those decisions a little bit more effectively. So I want to start not with our foundation of research, but I want to start with the top part about our value proposition and our messaging. And I know we heard earlier about the elevator pitch and how you build those things. This is really not for your elevator pitch, but it's to infuse your whole brand, right? How are you going to talk about yourself? How is your staff going to talk about you? How do you want your clients and your peers to be talking about you? What do you want them to say about you when they're in a room and somebody mentions they need what you do? To say, oh, you need to call them. They do that. They're really great at this piece of it. So you want to look at your features and benefits beyond your services and certifications. So if you have the opportunity, and I did this for my graduate studies, to look at various different firms in our industry. I looked at multidiscipline engineering firms, right? I think it was mentioned earlier, the CH2M Hills, the AECOMs, all those. If you look at them, sometimes their messaging sounds very much alike, right? You could replace one firm with the other. This is usually the trend among like the mid-sized firms, the 500 to 700 person firms. Their stuff sounds alike. And so we need to do better. We need to not make it interchangeable. We need to show our features and benefits, not just that we have 15 people and 2 offices and 35 years of experience. Those are things that most people can check off a box for. But what really are you bringing? Again, your people, your experience, and your process. Those are things that make you and your company unique. And that's also going to inform the value that you provide, not just your capabilities and the services that you do, but what is the value? It was mentioned earlier, maybe you're very cost effective because you're able to be more nimble, or maybe you have 5 PhDs on staff that only specialize in certain types of engineering. Even the big guys don't have that kind of bench strength. So emphasize those things and really think about outside the box. You can do this internally with yourself, with your team. You can go through the worksheet, but it's also important just to look at and ask your peers, ask your clients, what have we done that's really been successful for you and added value to your projects? Don't be shy about it. Your clients want to talk about the work that you've done together. So go ahead and reach out and take that opportunity. You will find if you do client surveys and you conduct them in person, that not a lot of other firms are doing that. And your clients really appreciate the opportunity to talk candidly about the project outside of the constraints of a deliverable or a formal meeting. So tapping into your expertise, what are your core competencies? Do you have proprietary processes or systems? The previous speaker was mentioning their proprietary system to do the market research for you. So do you have something like that you can talk about? Maybe it's a unique shredding process that you go through for your designs, or maybe it's just something internal that helps you maintain your document control in a better way. And then also talk about what solutions you provide to help solve problems. Differentiators are a buzzword, and I often get a deer in the headlights look when I talk to my clients about what makes them different, or why did they decide to start to be an architect, or why did they go into engineering? People have a lot of trouble figuring out exactly, what that looks like and why. So you need to work through this again with your clients, with your team. Talk about what really separates you. And again, it can be some of your credentialing. It can be the experience. Maybe you have years of experience working for a specific agency, and that can really be a differentiator that others can't bring to the table. You also want to look at your position in the market. And this is not just about what you do, but really what you can be known for. Are you known for really great construction drawings? That is an asset, and you need to make sure that gets into your messaging and into your value proposition. You might not be known as a design excellence type firm, but if you're really great at construction administration or construction documentation, you don't get any change orders unless they're client requested. Those are pieces you should really be accenting and working through. And then any existing contracts that you have. If you've got contracts in place with certain agencies or ongoing relationships with folks, go ahead and emphasize that. Your past performance, again, this is a key differentiator because no one else can really claim that they've done the same work that you have or in the same way. So use your past performance as a way to sell your value. What have you done? Where have you done it really well? What have your clients said about you? Use those testimonials, request them, send out a client survey. If you do federal work, then you're going to want to use your CPARS ratings or other documents that you might have that show your commitment to cost, schedule, quality, and overall management. So marketing tools are part of the tool chest, and these are the pieces that you're going to create after going through understanding your value and how you're going to put that together. Most potential buyers, whether they're a prime contractor or an agency, are going to do research on who they're buying from. Even if you're going through a proposal process, they're going to look you up. They want to know who you are, what you've done. If they don't know you already, or even if they do, they want to check it out. So you want to make sure that your digital platforms are up to speed, that you've got your website with contact information and hopefully some past performance information on there. You might also be active on social media. LinkedIn is an excellent resource for professional services firms, and more people are connecting through that medium and using it as a research tool. So make sure your bio's up to date. Make sure your team that's on your staff have links to your company on their pages because their networks are also quite large. But you're going to use these marketing tools as needed. You don't need all of them all the time, but you need the basics so that you can continue to do your outreach. One thing I want to talk about is one-on-one meetings and how to best use them. And there's a lot of talk about preparing for the meetings and doing research on the person you're meeting with so that you can go in and say, oh, you're a football fan or you're a baseball fan, and talk about those things. That's really important to start building those relationships. But you also want to make sure that your business relationships talk about business. So if you find yourself in the position where you might have a lot of relationships with potential clients or teaming partners, but you're not teaming together, you might be focused too much on the friendship side of the business. And so you need to make sure that you're able to focus on, having those business conversations, asking them about opportunities that are coming up, or wondering how to partner. I think we focus a lot in business development on forming those bonds with people, which is really important because we do business with people. And in the design world, we're doing a lot of work together. You can't design a building, you can't renovate a bathroom without a ton of collaboration. So you want to be able to like who you're working with and understand where they're coming from. Those pieces are really important, so you can maintain those relationships, but also think about, for people that you already have in your network that could be a potential business relationship for you, turning those from more friendships into business relationships. People are not upset by making an ask to have virtual coffee and talk about work, even if they're mostly a friend. So, think about how you can use your network in those ways. For those of you already bidding on government work, ask for debriefings whether you win or lose a proposal. These are really key information gathering sessions to help you understand where you fell, how they perceived your materials. Did what you write tell the right story? If it did, then you're on the right track. If it didn't, then you know where you missed the mark and how you might need to reposition what you're saying, because maybe they didn't see the value that you thought you were bringing. So all of those opportunities, take advantage of them so that you understand more how your clients think. So you also want to spend some time, as I mentioned earlier, on research, looking at forecasts, looking at budgets, understanding what's going on in the world. It might be subscribing to your local business journal or reading the business section of your paper, but understanding what's going on in the community that you're going to do work in so that you can get an understanding of how they talk about themselves, what projects they have coming up, what their pain points are, what you're going to want to address in the proposal. And if you're a small business trying to team with a large one and you know more about a project coming up than they might because you've done the research, then you can help them say, look, I add value here because I know that the agency is having trouble with these pieces. So, this is where my firm can help answer those questions. And you can put those packages together that are really highly tailored, or just have a conversation to explain what you know about the project. I know when I've worked for prime contractors in my career, when a subcontractor would come to me already knowing about a project and saying, I've talked to them and they really want this thing to happen, I already know that they're going to be on my team because A, the agency knows them, and B, they're going to add something to my team that I didn't have before. So think about how you can learn more about the projects you want to pursue, and then go to your primes and have those strategic conversations about the project with them. This research and understanding of the forecasts are going to help you with that activity. Every agency that you want to work with likely has some sort of website that probably isn't as clear-cut as this one with future opportunities. But if you do some digging, you might be able to find it. There's also, different search engines out there, or not search engines, different programs out there that you can use to do the research for you. Also attending things like this, getting to, in the chat, dialoguing with the folks that are here, or attending in-person events when we can do that again. Going to the understanding, getting to know the people that are there, whether they're teaming partners whether they're competitors or even if they're ultimate end users and clients that you want to talk to. Be present there. If you want to be in that industry, being engaged in those activities is going to help just raise the awareness of who you are and who your firm is. Even if it's not as interactive as it could be, you don't have to be a sponsor. You don't have to have or be a speaker to, get to get recognition. But just being there, interacting with people was going to help the perception of your company and your brand. It's also going to just get you more information about what you want to do. So I think this one-page marketing plan is part of our handout. And if it's not, I'll make sure that I get it to Jessica so that you guys have it. But this is our favorite way to work with clients when we're trying to come up with a marketing plan that supports their strategic business plan. It's our one-page strategic marketing plan. You can see this one is old. We've used it for a long time, but we always start with our overarching goals. What do we want to really be doing with our business? And if you're a single service firm with one office or two, and you can have your goals be focused very much on that. If you're a multi-discipline firm, or you have a lot of different initiatives for the year, you can do one-page marketing plans for each one of those initiatives. So you don't have to fit your entire company marketing plan into this page if it makes sense to parse it out into different things. You can also use this as a quarterly activity or a monthly activity, but quarterly seems to work best for most, where you might want to start the year with different goals. And you might know you're going to hit those goals by February or March. And so then for the second quarter, you can set a new set of goals, just the same as you would if you want to work, in this case, a federal market, and you also want to work for a local university. You can use this tool to set up a marketing plan for all of those. But you have your big goal. This is really what you want to achieve. It could be a year-long goal. It could be a 6-month goal. And then you have your objectives. As what are you going to do to get there? What's it really look like when it actually happens? And then the strategies and the tactics are exactly how you're going to do it. What are you going to do every day? What are you going to do every month? And how are you going to do all these tactics are supporting that goal at the top there. So your goal is what you want to accomplish. These are your big goals. Again, doing this quarterly is a really great activity as a business because as I said, you have a plan, but your plan might change halfway through the year because somebody new wants to come and work for you, and that's going to be able to change the trajectory of your business because now you can offer a new service line, or something else changes throughout the year. So I find doing this quarterly for my business and with my clients is also an easier way to tackle it. So what you want to accomplish, think big. What are the steps you're going to do to achieve that goal? And then what approaches are you going to take, and what specific actions are you going to take? So this is in the slides, and I will not bore you with reading it all, but we did one of these way back. This is from when I worked for an in-house for a company. But we used this one-page strategic plan to map out our goals to achieve these 3 main goals related to a new law from the EPA, the total maximum daily load. And I'm in Maryland, so this really impacted the Chesapeake Bay that we have here. So we had our environmental experts really wanted to be positioned to tackle this when it came out. What did our clients need support around? So this one-page strategic marketing plan was put in place. Everyone involved can tack it up on their in their desk. They can look at it. They know what their actions are. You assign people to it. This can be supported by a lot of other documentation, but putting it on one page makes it so much more manageable than trying to do a gigantic marketing plan with an executive summary and all of the other supporting materials. So you could certainly do that, but this is a good snapshot to just give your team direction and daily reminders, and then you visit this weekly, quarterly, monthly, whatever works for your company, and you revisit this to see where you are, what's already been achieved, and what needs to be adjusted. So some of the strategies are also, how are you going to pursue work? Are you going to be a prime, a sub, a teaming partner? And all of those have different tactics to get to your goal. If you want to prime, you need to find the right contracts and find the folks to support your team and build relationships with the agency. If you're going to be a sub, you also want to do agency relationships and relationships with the prime contractors. As a teaming partner, you want to be reaching out to those folks that will be recommending you or that you're going to use on your team. You also want to track the work that you're doing with all of this strategic plan. It could be pipeline tracking through an online system. You might build capture plans for each of the pursuits that you're going after, and that's an entirely different presentation on how to build a capture plan. But those are generally high visibility pursuits that you're going after, and you build a marketing plan just for that opportunity. And sometimes those are done a year in advance, sometimes they're done 6 months in advance, but it really helps you line up all those pieces, the teaming partners, the subs, the primes, into one place so that you can make a decision on how you're going to go after that pursuit. And then your client relationship management software, no matter what marketing activities you're doing, it's important for you to have a CRM tool. It can be as simple as a spreadsheet. There's a bunch of free online ones now. We use HubSpot. Zoho has some, and you can use this to enter the people that you meet, make notes about what's going on, what's coming up. You can even use it to track your proposal submissions. So using those softwares to help you remind yourself when you need to reach out to somebody, where you met somebody, all of those pieces go in here because we're not going to remember all the people we meet. So how do we put all that together? So your marketing strategy implementation, this is all about building those relationships. You want to really, but you also have to manage it. You have to run your business. You have to manage your staff. So how are you going to do all of this and that? These are some ways to do this. So those top targets that you identify when you're building your strategic plan, you're going to have opportunities that you want. You're going to go after certain contracts or go pursue certain clients. Keep that really manageable. You can start with a list of 20 and then just whittle it down to those that are actually doable within the time frame that you're allowing yourself. So don't try and tackle everyone because you're not going to be able to do it. But 3 to 5 is great. And if you check those off early in the year, then add 3 to 5 more. But you really want to spend time with those key targets, whether it's just an agency or a firm or an actual contract that you're pursuing. Make sure that you're able to focus your efforts there and really build those relationships that you need to have all of those to get to those targets. You want to understand the small business impacts. I know earlier we were talking about the way that the agencies approach the small businesses and how they need to meet their utilization goals. So understand how that can impact your business and your prime's business, but ultimately the agencies. And if you've got a great relationship going with the agencies, you can talk to them more about how they're using the small business goals and how they could improve them, so that you can have that dialogue with them outside of an actual pursuit opportunity, but just have a conversation about what changes they might be seeing or what they need to help meet their goals and how you might be able to help them. Using that CRM, again, whether it's a formal system or just a spreadsheet, or if you use Outlook, have a shared Outlook contacts list for your team. You want to use that so you can establish some regular touch points with your customers, or those relationships that you're building. How much can you keep in touch with somebody? I think that there's some statistics about a human can't really manage more than 100 relationships in their life, right, at one time. So if you think about that, you know, how many people are in your family, how many people are in your office, how many people, you know, do your mailman, the cleaning folks, like all those people in your life, you're talking to them all the time, and then you're going to try and grow that. So again, keeping this really manageable, but using some tools to help you manage it is going to keep you on the right track so that you don't lose sight of who you need to be talking to, and then folks that you want to be talking to, because you want to nurture your network, and you also need to grow your network. So there's a balance of how you're going to do that. You also need to understand how you can engage government employees. Right now, we're not dealing with that so much in terms of going out to dinner or lunch, but just understanding, you know, when and how you can have relationships if you're talking directly to an agency. So you want to create your call list and your contact plan as part of your marketing strategy. So you've got those goals. These are some of the tactics that you're going to use. The marketing strategy implementation. Who are you going to be talking to? Who do you need to reach out to? Who's going to help you understand more about the projects that you want to go after, or the people that you need to know? For government customers, there's usually 3 types of customers that you're going to be dealing with. This also applies to the prime, the very large primes, the Jacobs or the AECOMs of the world. You know, they have folks that just deal with small business specialists. They have in-house procurement folks. They often tell you, just fill out our small business page on our website and we'll contact you. Well, that's a step and you have to check that box. But then you need to build the relationship with those influencers. Who's within that firm that can help be an advocate for you? Who have you worked with before that can tell their peers, oh, hey, we've worked with them. They do a really great job on these type of projects. And who can you ask to make introductions to other people within the firm? Those are the people you want to be talking to. And then the end users are usually on the client side. Those are the people that are actually going to be the program folks working on your project with you, or they're the ones that are going to be using the building, or if it's a building, they're the ones that are going to be occupying it, the folks that are going to be actually engaging with your product at the end of the day. Those people are all the folks that you might want to have a relationship with. So getting in the door, these are some pretty straightforward tactics to make sure that you are able to get these relationships going. Attending trade shows and organization events, doing that networking, being part of organizations like this, and reaching out to the folks that you meet here, reaching out to the presenters or the other attendees. All of those people are now part of your network, and so you can use that to get introductions and to find places that you need to go. You can just straightforward call the office and make an appointment, introduce yourself, have your capability statement ready to go. There's generally, my advice is always to remember that on the other side is another human. And so even if you're dealing with a government agency or a large prime, they also are equally busy and overwhelmed. So if you don't get a response right away, it's okay to follow up and reach out again, make sure that they've received what you sent them, or, ask for another meeting. If you're asking for a meeting, make sure you're going in with some good reasons to meet, especially if it's another teaming partner, a peer firm or a prime. You want to talk about a specific opportunity, or you have some ideas for collaboration in mind, instead of just wanting to do a capabilities briefing, because folks don't always have time on their schedule to manage that. And they might, you probably will for the small business folks, but to meet with program people, you want to make sure that you're really coming to them with a good reason to get together. It's really helpful if you met them at a networking event and then you're able to do it as a follow-up and continue the conversation that you were having. So it all rolls together. You can also hire somebody that can help make introductions for you, especially if you're trying to pursue certain things. There might be an opportunity to bring on a subject matter expert that knows some of the people inside the agency that can help navigate for you. but also, just somebody that might be an advocate for your company and make introductions and use their network. If you don't have the capacity to hire a full-time business development person, which is a huge investment, using somebody as on a consultant basis might be helpful for your company to get those doors to open. So when you're in client meetings, you plenty of things to talk about. So this slide, again, you have it in your handouts, some opportunities to start conversations with people. You want to be able to be interesting and to leave an impact when you have these meetings. So having prepared questions of what you want to learn, and that's also going to make sure that they feel heard. Some of these questions are some great ways to break the ice and also get some meaningful conversation, not just talk about the weather, but break the ice with talking about what's really meaningful to them and how you might be able to help them. When you're done with your meetings, you want to make sure that you're following up, that you're logging the meeting in your CRM or in your calendar, somewhere that you can find it later, or someone else can find it in your company and say, oh, we had a meeting with them last week. Let's, now they've got an RFP out. This is great. You want to make sure that you're tracking all of that on your side. Handwritten notes are really, I think they're becoming more of a trend. But at the same time, an email follow-up is just as considerate. If you offered them anything, perhaps you wanted to send them your capability statement, or you're going to send them an example of a report that you just did that would be of interest to them. Make sure you do it in the time frame that you allotted. I think the previous session mentioned, if you tell them you're going to give it to them on Friday and you deliver it Wednesday, you look like a rock star. For a business development engagement, that's not so much different. If you tell them you'll get them a sample of your work, go ahead and send it as sooner than you think you can, so that they've got it in their inbox. They've got more time to spend with it. Also gives you another opportunity to follow up again, because you've delivered it early, and then you can reach back out and make sure they received it. You also might want to tailor the stuff that you send them. If it is a generic capability statement, you might want to tailor it a little bit more based on your conversation. So it's hard to do, but after your meetings, make sure you've got time built in to do the follow-up. And if you are attending a networking event, you might even want to put on your calendar for a couple of days later to follow up with everyone that you met. So you can send out a note to the folks whose cards you've collected to say, it was great to meet you, either let's have coffee or just nice to meet you. Hopefully we connect again, but you've got all of that time built in to have that follow-up. It's also good if you're that able to set that time aside before the event, then you can always say to somebody, I'll call you on Thursday at 10, because you've already set aside Thursday at 10 as the time to do your follow-up calls. So if you're engaged in a really great conversation, you already know you're going to have time set aside. So if you're in person, you're having a great dialogue, you can just set it up right there because you've already got it on your calendar. These relationships, like I said, they're hard to maintain because we have so many things in our lives and so many people that we want to be part of. So we want to do our best and, again, use the tools that we have to follow up on our promises and make sure that we keep in contact with people. We want to make sure that even if we're not in the room, we have enough advocates in our network that people can think of us and recommend us when we're to folks that need us. And just continue to build that rapport with folks that we meet that we know are going to be valuable, or we can be valuable to them. So I mentioned earlier the capture plan, and all of these elements here are definitely part of just ongoing business development, whether it's about a strategic opportunity or not. So you're building all these relationships, you've got your value proposition, how are you still going to be winning this work, right? That's the real part of getting on the right contract. So elements of a capture plan can really help you navigate through all of that. Where are you going to put your time and energy? So understanding the opportunities that you're going after, understanding who you're going to pursue them with, the customer, the project, what solution do you offer, whether it's to the prime or to the agency, who's also competing against this, and how are you going to be positioning for it. These are all pieces of your ongoing marketing anyway, so you can tailor it for one specific pursuit, or you can use it throughout your business in how you pursue different work. But all of these items can really position your firm and help you make decisions on what you want to pursue, because we all know that the pursuits take a ton of time, and you don't want to say no to an opportunity that's doable while you're waiting on one that you really want to win. But what if they both come out at the same time, and then your resources are stretched thin? So that's where having the plan can really help you say no to an opportunity when you're waiting on a better one. And those are hard decisions to make as business owners, is to do that no-go, but it will help your resources. It will help you be prepared for those must-win opportunities, especially if things are stacking up. And this year we've seen opportunities all over the place. Things that were planned are not, and things that weren't planned are. So, we have to be nimble and be able to adjust to that. So you have to be really smart with how you plan your resources, and having those business relationships can really help you make those decisions, because you can pick up the phone, you can call your colleagues and dialogue with them about what they think and what their opinions are on the market or the opportunity, or what they're hearing, who's pursuing it. So you use your network to collect all this information. I have a really good friend who's maybe the best person at doing this. She knows everyone that's bidding. Every time her firm goes after a project, she knows every other firm that's competing with them, because she uses her network. She calls and she asks. She finds out who they're teaming with, and she tells them who they're teaming with, because they also don't want their small businesses to be overwhelmed. But they also just need to know exactly what's going on in the marketplace. That's a really unique skill, and she's worked it over time to be able to know, who is everybody, who all is going after it, and how are they going after it. And then to follow up, she knows who wins, and might be able to pinpoint why they won without even having to ask the client. So, having a network that can be supportive and that you're adding value to by sharing your information is priceless in this industry. So we identify our opportunities, we pre-qualify our opportunities. Again, that go, no go, do we really want to be doing this? And then we also work on collecting intelligence for our opportunities. Who else is pursuing it? Should we be a prime? How, what are the budgetary constraints? What are the small business requirements? All of these things that we need to know. We work through positioning and differentiating and coordinating with our teaming partners. All these activities, part of your marketing and also part of your proposal development. And then we have our proposal, which is its own exciting activity in and amongst itself. It's a hyper-focused marketing plan proposal. Then we've got our source selection, which is can be intelligence gathering for us too, because we know who our competitors are at that point, and then we can find out who was selected. And then the award, which ultimately, if it goes to us, we're winning more work. And if we don't win, we can also go through the debrief. So I know proposals were covered earlier, so I'm not going to go through proposals too much here, but I wanted to throw it in just in case there's any questions. We spend a lot of our time on proposals. And my opinion, if you learn nothing else from what I tell you today, is that proposals should be looked at as a very hyper-focused, very unique marketing effort. Don't look at them as a box-checking activity or a necessary evil. Yes, there's forms. Yes, there's checklists. They're not always glamorous, but you're tailoring it for a specific client, for a specific opportunity, and it's all your best stuff related to that pursuit. So it's all your best resumes, it's all your best projects, it's all your best narrative about your methodology and your approach about how you do that specific thing or how you work with that specific agency. So if you think of it that way, and then you also are able to use that information in other places maybe it's on your website, you're refining your project descriptions in that proposal, and it's all about that kind of work. Now you can put that on your website and your SEO might be improved because you're now tracking for certain keywords that are in that proposal that you might not have put in a generic project description. So we approach proposals as that hyper-focused marketing activity. And whether it's a proposal or a brochure or a website, at the end, you've got a beautifully tailored package that talks specifically and directly to your client. So put that hat on when you're working on your proposals. It makes them a little bit easier and a lot more fun. So this is a go-no matrix. It's a version of many that we've used in the past. It can be updated for your pursuit, but this is really where I always want to advocate for making that go or no-go decision based on your marketing plan. So it supports that plan that you set up in the beginning of the year or the start of the quarter. It supports your overall business goals, and it also supports the resources you have. So making that go, no-go decision, not out of a sense of, well, we could do it. It would be nice to have, but more of, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. This is what our plan says. This is the work that we want to be, bringing into our company. So use a go, no-go decision-making tool to help you make those decisions. So your action items from today are to update your registrations, keep up to date on your social media, build those relationships, all of those fun things. And how you're going to do it all. So if you spend 4 hours one afternoon building your strategic plan, and you set up all the things that you need to be registered on to get notifications about upcoming pursuits, or go through and register as a small business with the primes you want to work with, set up your social accounts, make sure your website forms are working, all of those things. That can be done in one chunk of time, probably more over a couple of days, but consider it as one chunk of time. And then over the course of the year, spend 15 minutes a day doing some of these activities to build those networks and to build those relationships. So if you have 4 hours and plus 15 minutes a day, this is a list of some of those things that you might have accomplished in that time. You might have read a bunch of newspaper articles that might be relevant to projects you're pursuing. You probably made some LinkedIn or social media posts that help raise the visibility of your firm, or at least your expertise. Maybe you updated your resume or you registered for an event. All of these things can happen, and that counts towards your marketing activity. Don't count yourself short of that you haven't done a marketing thing because you just registered for an event. Setting aside that time, making that decision, that all counts towards your marketing because you're putting that energy into the right place. So if you spent 60 minutes a week, that might look like something like this: more attending sessions like this, and reviewing RFPs, or having some virtual coffees. All of this can be accomplished in 60 minutes a week, which, not everybody even, if you take 60 minutes a week, that's, might be replacing time that you might be working out, but hopefully it's time that you can find to fit in. So at the end of this, if you spend time every day, it adds up to your week, to your month. By the end of the year, you could have accomplished all of these things. And that can be done just quickly, setting aside some time in the morning before you get your day started, or while you're having lunch. Multitask during those times to, update your resume, or jot down some ideas about things you might want to do so that you can collect your thoughts and build them into your plan for the next year or the next quarter. All of these pieces make it sound much more manageable, right, than trying to tackle all the things we just talked about for the last 45 minutes. So my friend Mindy and I created a 15-minute marketing e-course. It's free. It sends you for 21 days a prompt on what you could do in that day to do some marketing, to build your business relationships, and set yourself up for success. So I have the link here. Feel free to sign up. It's free, and it only lasts 21 days. Most of our subscribers have saved them for future use, so that they can go back to them or share them with their team and say, hey, why don't you just go ahead and do this? So we spend a lot of time putting some thought into this to help our clients and our friends spend some time every day on their marketing. So sometimes they're a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So if you don't feel like doing it that day, you can always save it to do it later. So I leave you with this thought. What a group does with its billable time determines its income for the year. But what it does with its non-billable time determines the future. So that concludes my presentation. I thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I hope I've added some value and given you some food for thought on how you might approach some of the marketing and business relationships in your life. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are. If there aren't any, or if you think of something later, you have my email and phone. Feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to jump on a call or just share some emails.
Okay, any questions for Carrie Ann? Carrie Ann, that was a wonderful presentation. And can you go back one slide, that saying that you have? What a group does with its, that is so true, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it puts things in perspective.
It sure does.
Yeah, because we spend so much time, fighting we're always on deadline in the AE industry. And so that definitely preoccupies most of our time. So, balancing that with some focused time in your non-billable work can really be valuable.
I might have a question for her.
Okay, go ahead, Otto.
Yeah, good afternoon again. Fascinating presentation. Interestingly, it's actually it's actually tailored for a small firm like mine. I'm an architect. So my question is, I had researched how much it would pay to have a full-time employee with the kind of knowledge you have. And I found out I couldn't afford it as a micro mini firm. What would you advise, since I need to grow my firm, for a very small firm to be able to put in so much time in marketing? Because mind you, I'm also working on projects, working on managing the firm, and quite a lot. How would you advise a very, very small firm to go about this marketing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Do you have staff that work with you?
I do every now and then on-call basis, on an as-needed basis, but 99% of the time it's myself, 7 days a week.
Yes. So even in 15 minutes a day, that's a lot. Yeah. So for the very small firms, first, I would definitely make sure that your consultants that work with you are somehow, I wouldn't say incentivized, but that you let them know that not that there would be a commission if they brought work to you, but that you would be happy for them to, make introductions to the firm, because they've probably got other networks that you're not tapping into. So I would start there with the folks that are really in that inner circle of, who are you working with every day, who's supporting your firm, and ask them to help you through their networks by making introductions. And maybe it's just an email introduction to folks that they've worked with in the past, or things like that, where, they just need to know that you're interested in having them reach out to their networks, because people don't always know that, right? You might think that, oh, they're working for me and they know somebody over here. They'll think of me when they want to, but you need to sort of make that invitation and give them permission to market for you. And then I think if you have some clear goals about what you want, whether it's just introductions, getting the door to open. There's a handful of colleagues that I know in your area that are similar to my company, that do that kind of marketing and business development consulting. They would do it on probably an hourly or a lump sum basis. But you'd need to just have a strategy session with them to really nail down, like, what do you need them to be doing? Is it, probably opening doors and making introductions for you, more than, updating your website, right? But for a firm like yours, it's really about getting those relationships in place so that people are thinking about you when they need you. And then also for you to be there when they need you, right? So you probably need someone to help support, when does an RFP come out, to say, oh, this just came out, let's call these 5 folks. At my old firm, we used to call it our usual suspects list, right? So we knew who we wanted to team with on certain kinds of projects. So whenever that RFP came out, we would, reach out to the top 10 firms on that list. But we had like 5 people that were able, that were keeping an eye on when the RFP came out, who's following up with them. So for you, one person, you're not going to have that time to be monitoring all the sites. So,
right. I hope you don't mind, and I won't dominate the conversation. I have looked at my competition. What they all have in common, and they're very successful. They have a full-time marketing director like you, and all you have to do is go to the AIA Seattle, American Institute of Architects, is AIA, and they will give you a list of how much someone like yourself should be earning a year. And at the end of the day, that's my goals. Okay, I'm not going to cut corners. This is how you do it right. So the type of advice I'm looking from you, to keep it specific, is how do I approach this person and say, look, because all the person has to do is bring in 1 or 2 projects. They are mostly in hundreds of thousands of dollars that will pay the person's salary very easily. But initially, you don't have the money. Somehow we work out a deal whereby they basically buy themselves into this full-time position via bringing in projects somehow, because you don't have that initial upfront money to commit to hiring them full-time. I'm looking for some type of strategy like that from you. Thank you.
I don't really know how you would do that until you found the right person. I think it would go back to finding using your network to find a person that might be looking. There might be folks that are, in maybe not full-time employed, that would be willing to work kind of at risk to bring in jobs. But I think, unfortunately, most folks that are full-time marketers for AE firms are salaried, and they don't have there's some commission built in, but it's not like a sales position if you worked for Dell Computers or something like that. So, that would be interesting to explore, but you'd have to find the right person that would be willing to work in an at-risk kind of way.
Yes, there's an organization in Seattle called the SMPS.
Yes.
Society for Marketing Professional Services. These are folks who are very, yes, thank you very much, focused in architectural engineering, contract, and marketing. So yes. I know where to go and look. It's just the amount needed to pay someone like that. If possible, with 2-3 projects. But for now that you don't have that, I'm trying to see how I can gradually work something out whereby at the end of the day, the person will be hired full-time and will be paid, because it depends on the person's skills to bring in 2-3 of those type of projects. And That's the person's yearly salary right there. That's not a problem. It's just the initial way of accomplishing this goal is the insight I'm looking for. Well, thank you, though.
Yeah. So it might, SMPS, I'm a member, I've been a member for a long time. They have job boards. You could come up with a job description and post, I think you have to pay to post on their websites, but not always, so you could put, put something out there and see what they have. And if you're a member, or if you know people that are members, I would reach out to them and ask them to share with you some folks that might be a candidate. Because I think you could start them out on an hourly basis, and again, put some real parameters around what you want. Because the trick is that the opportunities that they might be pursuing probably go through an RFP process, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So you have to wait for the timing of the RFP. If you were to bring them on now, it's right before Thanksgiving, the RFP might not be out till February. But you need them to be positioning you in the meantime to get on the right team, or to, be in the position to go after the work. So if you knew certain pursuits that you wanted, I would think you could get somebody on board on a limited basis to help with that pre-positioning for those specific contracts. Again, like create a capture plan for them. And then, once the work gets in the door, then you can look at bringing them on a full-time basis. But I would imagine there's folks out there that would be willing to work in a limited capacity like that. So.
Yeah, Carrie, we actually invited SMPS representative. It's going to be with us in December 17, Atto. They're going to do a presentation, so.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Nizam Rashid. Thank you, Carrie Ann, for the presentation. And I have probably seen your presentation a few times at JETC and SBC.
Yes. So
very familiar, very good. Your presentation always is very enlightening to me. I am an engineer, as well as I worked at AECOM as a marketing person as well, business development. So few things that, you talked about hard copy, qualification materials and things like that, mailing a notes in handwritten notes and things like that. Even in the SBC and JETC conference like that, when I take the hard copy, they always, even the marketing people, they tell us, just email me. Do not give me a hard copy. They don't have the luggage to increase their luggage going back home and things like that. And that was when we are doing it in person.
Yeah.
So the question is, it seems to me that the hard copy culture is kind of getting a little bit reduced, not increasing, but did you see a different trend?
It's a change to videos?
No, hard copy, the giving a hard copy of anything to a client or people are not getting into more and more into hard copies. They want a soft copy or somehow,
Yeah, I do
one
think
of your slides suggested that we give, hard copy or mail the hard copy and things like that.
I do think, when you're in a one-on-one meeting situation, say you're meeting with the Army Corps Small Business Officer, having that hard copy there to walk them through it in person is really good. You'll want to follow up with email. But I think for one-on-one meetings, having that as a kind of a guidepost for the meeting is really nice. But yeah, even proposal wise, we're seeing more digital submissions over hard copy. But then I also think people are doing more handwritten notes, and it's not bad to follow up with something. It'll make you stand out, right?
Yes.
If somebody follows up with a hard copy of their capability statement and letter, that's different than flooding. I probably have 89 emails after being with you guys for an hour. So,
No, thank you. Thank you. And another question I have is, you mentioned that, just do this thing for 15 minutes or 20 minutes. I have been in a full-time engineering role as well as full-time business development role and the mixed roles. It's difficult to, you have one mindset. Either you are in a business development mindset or in a doing project mindset. I find it very difficult that as we human being that, okay, I'm doing this marketing for 15 minutes and after 15 minutes, I right away jump deep into that project deliverables. Transition is very difficult. It does not happen that way, at least for not with me. I did not see that, after 15 minutes, if there is another business development thing, that will drive you. The people who does business development, any opportunity, any new contact, that drives them. They're not looking into the deliverables.
right.
So how do you become that person that of a cocktail that you can do everything?
I think it's just practice. And I think for folks that aren't natural business development folks, for people that, it's hard to sit and work on your resume, or it's difficult to pick up the phone and reach out to someone you worked with last year, find the time of day that really can work for you when, you're probably, as in your engineering work, there's probably a time of day where you start to kind of wind down and you need to switch. Maybe it's 10 o'clock in the morning, or maybe it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon where you just need something else to do. I would try to find those times in your day that you're just naturally, coming to a stopping point, and then you can take a break, switch gears, do something, pick up the phone and call someone, shoot off an email, read a news article, and then come back to it, right? So it's not like you need to stop and sit and do it for 15 whole minutes, but it could just be switching gears from doing your project work to sending an email off to Lily and saying, hey, thanks so much, that was great, and then going back, right? So, or if you need to do some really focused time, you have to plan that in your calendar and say, Tuesday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to be, working on my business development plan, and you got to just set up that time to do it and, get yourself in the mindset for it. But I would find in your day-to-day life, just those opportunities where, maybe you send a deliverable off to a client, and then you can sit back and say, okay, that's off my desk. I'm going to call my client I worked with last year and see how they're doing. But that's where, that's why we did our little email marketing thing, because what we found too is you might have that opportunity in the day. You might think, oh, I've got 15 extra minutes. I just sent this, package off. What am I going to do? And instead you go on Facebook or go make some coffee. So take that time to, look it up and say, what could I be doing that's going to further my goals, instead of just, flipping through Facebook.
Thank you. Thank you. And one last question, and I'm sorry that I'm taking that long. Regarding calling people, like calling the clients or the ex-clients, ex-friends and things like that. When I started my career, we used to call people, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we used to make a lot of calls. But nowadays that number has reduced. And sometimes I feel that if I have not scheduled a call with somebody, it is almost rude to call them without a schedule or without in their calendar. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I honestly, I think this year it's become very, very much that way, because, we're planning all these virtual meetings, and everyone's calendars are really booked, more so than I feel like last year. And so one of the things that we've suggested is, just go ahead and, instead of just calling out of the blue, send an email and ask for, just 15 minutes. Don't say, let's meet for half an hour, or, but just say, can you got 15 minutes for me to call you in the morning? And then you can call them, before the day really gets going or something like that. But I have found that too, planned calls are becoming more the norm. So yeah, and maybe just ask somebody too, like, what, especially if you're working with them now, figure out what their preferred communication styles are.
Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else more questions for Carrie Ann? Okay, so we've got one that came in through chat,
Okay.
but I don't know which question you actually answered for him. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask it. Any recommendations on networking strategies during COVID when we can't do in-person events?
So one of the things that we've talked about a lot with folks lately is reaching out to your network, and not necessarily the people that you're currently working with, but folks that you've worked with in the past, or just maybe just go through your business cards from when you were meeting in person and follow up with people that you haven't heard from. I think we rely a lot on social media to keep up with people, but just sending a note, and as we were talking about earlier, picking up the phone and calling someone out of the blue sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So you can just drop them a note. I know I check in with my old clients periodically, just to drop a note and say, hey, saw a new project on your LinkedIn page, looks great. So how do you want to be reached out to? How do you like people to contact you? And then try that with some of your network. I think at this point in our lives right now, people are focused more on nurturing their current network than building new. But if you need to build new or want to build new, I would suggest starting with your current network and letting them know, hey, we added a new service this year, or we just got this new project, we want to do more. Who would you introduce me to? And then have them help you expand your network. Instead, make it a warm introduction instead of just looking up people and cold calling. I don't think we really do that anymore, especially not in our industry. So just think about who you haven't connected with in a while that you would like to talk to, that maybe you would have run into at a networking event, and just go ahead and reach out. But also, again, be considerate. Like, how would you want to be approached? What would you want to hear if you were receiving the email, and write it that way.
Okay, thank you for that. The other question was, I think you've kind of answered it, that the people that they used to work with are no longer with their companies. And so they're having to get to know the new people, and it feels like they're starting all over again. But if you've got work history with that company, you can at least talk to that person about your history with that company.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely start there. And, if you're not getting traction with the new personnel, maybe, again, use your network, try to find another one of your colleagues that's working with them to find someone else to introduce you to, or even ask that person and just say, is there someone else I should be talking to about an upcoming project? If they're too busy or just, not in that role, they might be in the position of the previous person, but maybe not in the same role strategically to bring on teaming partners. So, yeah. That's
Okay.
a tough one.
Any other questions? Anybody else? I don't see anything coming through. If you've got questions, you can go ahead and unmute and ask Carrie Ann. We've got our expert online with us right now. Carrie Ann, one of the last questions I have for you right now is a 9-point touch during the year using constant contact. What's your opinion about that? Putting out information about the company, like this is what we're working on, to stay in front of,
Yeah,
and to keep people interested.
I love it. I mean, I think email marketing is definitely here to stay. People are at their computers more and more. I think some good best practices are make sure your subject line is interesting, and not just Carrie Ann's newsletter. Make sure that you're targeting topics that are relevant to people that are reading what you're writing. So again, going back to your business strategy and your marketing strategy, what are those goals? what's going to help you get there. So if you want to be known for a certain service or a certain kind of project, make sure that newsletter is about those things. If you just want to share a new hire or, a new project news, that's also got value. It's going to hit people differently than sharing like a white paper on a topic. So, just balance that news with what you want, what your goals really are. And then also, if you're using Constant Contact or MailChimp or any of those, take a look at who's actually opening your emails, who might be sharing them, and then use that as an opportunity to reach out outside of the platform, just one-on-one, and say, hey, you shared our newsletter, thank you so much, and just use that as an opportunity to follow up. Don't just rely on the automation.
Okay, great advice. Thank you so much for your presentation today. We've sure learned a lot from you, Carrie Ann, and are very thankful that you were able to join the group today and share your expertise with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah. So our next presenter this afternoon is Caleb. And Caleb, I hope I don't kill your last name. I'm going to say it's McInvale.
You got it completely right, and almost everyone.
Okay, thank you. So Caleb is with OMWBE, Office of Minority and Women Business Enterprises. And so he's going to tell us about all the wonderful services that OMWBE provides. Caleb, let us know if you've got money that you're giving away or whatever you're doing that is special down there at OMWBE, because Christmas is coming, Caleb, and we are looking to you to be our Santa.
Well, in terms of money, not so much, but we can certify businesses. Our agency is pretty small and we have a very small amount of funding. Hopefully everyone can see my slides here just for my presentation. And really briefly, what we're going to talk about today is I'm going to go over our certification program, sort of just the basics about what the certification is, what it's for, and the different types of programs that we offer. And I'm going to talk about our qualifications, so what kinds of businesses are eligible for certification. And then I'm going to get into sort of a little bit on the basics of application, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes for questions if people have it. So first of all, OMWBE, we're part of the state government here in Washington. We are the official certification body for Washington state government. So we certify small businesses that are owned by minorities and women here in Washington state. So business owners will provide us with information about your company, and then we verify that these companies meet the certification criteria that we have. And we have two primary types of certification that we offer. One of them is a federal certification, and this is for transportation projects that are funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation. These aren't working directly with federal agencies, but it's working on state jobs. So for example, working at the airport, or working with the State Department of Transportation, or with like Sound Transit, so it's doing work on these state projects that have money from the federal government. So this is mostly construction-related work. Lots of A&E involved in this as well. And I know that some of these projects have specific goals for the design portion of these projects. But there's also a lot of support work that goes in, even if it's not directly construction related. But that's for mostly larger projects that are funded by the U.S. Department of Transportation, infrastructure projects, generally speaking, construction on the airport, things like that. There's also a state certification that's generally available for all Washington state programs that are state funded. So this can also be transportation related work that just has state money, but it gets any kind of building project or any kind of good or service that the state wants to procure. So this could be the university building new school buildings, Department of Enterprise Services, renovating state buildings, things like that. That state certification also provides a benefit to access to our link deposit loan program, which I'll explain in a second. And many companies have both the federal and the state certification. And for most A&E firms, if you're interested in working on any of these federally funded transportation projects, but not just that, it makes sense to get both the federal certification and the state certification. So what this certification is for is, in a nutshell, it helps make your business more competitive. And that's particularly true with the federally funded projects I mentioned. So I'm sure Tamika could mention, and maybe has today, talked about some of those projects, but the port does have federal funding from the Federal Aviation Administration, which qualifies them for this program that we have, which is called the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program. And all the projects that have federal money have a mandatory goal for certified firms. What this means is your business, if you have the right certification, becomes extremely competitive when working on these projects, as opposed to other companies that don't have the certification. The prime contractor who wins the project or the prime consultant will have a mandatory goal for participation of federally certified firms on the project. And if they don't make that goal, they could be financially sanctioned, so they could lose money, or they could even be debarred. It's not common, but it can happen. But then also any state project all have supplier diversity goals for certified firms. So this is working on, again, any kind of state project. They aren't mandatory goals, so if the contractor doesn't meet the goal, there isn't a penalty that's involved, but we work actively with state agencies in order to promote certified firms. They all report their spending to our agency on an annual basis, which is publicly available on our website. And then we actively work with them to increase the amount that they spend on certified businesses. Some private companies will also have our supplier diversity goals with our agency, but they aren't the primary focus of the certification, which is working with the government. And another reason to get certified is just certified companies are listed in our public directory of certified firms. So everyone on that directory will be, makes it sort of essentially cheap advertising for your company, because people who are looking to do business with a woman or minority-owned business can find you on that list pretty easily. Additionally, if you do have a state certification with our office, you get access to our link deposit.
Sorry to interrupt, Caleb. This is
Sure.
Tamika with the Port of Seattle. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
One of the things wanted to mention real quick, I think the previous slide you said that it's like the advertisement. That is so true, because if any prime contractor or consultant that is bidding on a DB project or federally funded project at the airport, we specifically tell them they need to go to OMWBE's directory and look for those certified firms. So again, free advertisement, Caleb is right. It is definitely a good place for you to be listed in, because again, you get quite a bit of visibility. So thank you.
You're welcome. And just, it can really make your business if you can get access on some of these longer term projects. But it's not just projects at the port, but this is going to be projects throughout the state if there's any kind of federal money in all these projects from the U.S. Department of Transportation. And then the state certification also gives you access to our link deposit loan program, which is a loan program for businesses that we certify, and it helps provide reduced interest rates on small business loans. So if your company does have a small business loan through one of our participating banks, we can just lower the interest rate on that loan by up to 2%. The state will subsidize your interest rate, so you just pay less every month, which can just be a great service for companies that are trying to expand or that sort of thing. And then in terms of what companies are eligible, well, different types of certification here, sorry, that's the next slide. There's some slight differences in terms of the sort of functions of the certification and how they work. The federal certification, there's a small fee associated with that, and it renews every year. So every year you'd have to submit a renewal for that. And the state certification renews every 3 years. But luckily, if you do want both the federal and the state certification at the same time, you can submit one application and get both certifications. We try to make that as easy as we can on you. So if you are interested in both certifications, just submit a federal application. The first question of that application will be, do you also want state certification? And you just say yes. And then we can give you both for just the federal fee and just the federal application. So in terms of what companies are eligible for certification, first of all, businesses need to be small. The limit is pretty healthy. It's based somewhat on the different industries that you're working in. but there's an overall program limit on all certified businesses of $23.98 million in gross receipts, which is quite large. So most small businesses are going to be able to fit comfortably underneath this limit and be able to do their work. Businesses also need to be licensed and registered, complete all the legal necessary steps in order to actively do business in the state. So for an A&E firm, you need to be a licensed architect to run an architectural firm, licensed engineer to run an engineering firm. But you don't need experience in the sense of your company doesn't need to be operational for a certain amount of time in order to get certified. The company also needs to be able to show that it can independently perform its services, so it has access to the necessary skills, staff, expertise, and equipment to do the kind of work that your company wants to do. Eligible people, or a group of eligible people, or one eligible person needs to own at least 51% of the business. I'll get into who is eligible on the next slide. And that group of eligible people that owns at least 51% of the company also needs to control the company. And that's on a day-to-day basis, so making daily decisions for the company, but also making major managerial decisions for the company as well. So they can't hire a general manager or something else like that and have that person run the company while they sort of sit back. They need to be actively involved with the business in order to be certified. So who is eligible? The law says that people have to be socially and economically disadvantaged, which is kind of a weird phrase. But essentially what that means is owners have to be a woman or a minority, or they have to be able to show they've been discriminated against in some other sense for the social disadvantage side. So if you're a woman or you're a minority, you're automatically to be socially disadvantaged by the law, and you don't have to show us anything. For economic disadvantage, it's a pretty complex analysis that we look at, but it's generally defined as having a personal net worth of less than $1.32 million. But that doesn't include your house. So if you do have an expensive home, particularly in the King County area, a lot of the home prices are pretty extreme. So that would not be counted towards your net worth there. But it does, those individuals, you have to be a woman or minority, and then have a net worth of under $1.32 million in order to be eligible for certifications. So how does the application work? It's an all online application at that website there. You can just click on that and go start or renew your certification. Once you're there, you can go online and create an account for your business and choose whether you want state or federal application. And again, if you do want the federal if you want both certifications, just start the federal application. Once you've created your account and started that application, you'll answer questions and upload documents into the system there. And then you'll submit your application. From there, it gets assigned to a certification analyst who is just your primary point of contact throughout the rest of the process. And if they have further questions, they'll reach back out to you and ask them. And typically that's pretty normal in the process. The timeline for that is for the federal certification takes roughly 90 days from when you've submitted your application. And that's about it. But one thing I do want to stress is that if you do have any questions as part of the process or having any difficulty, please contact us. We're here to help you get certified. So we want to make that as easy as we can. And if you do have any questions, please reach out to us. All right. Thank you very much. I think we have some time. Hopefully, maybe we're down a little bit over, but some time for questions.
All right, anybody with questions, just go ahead and unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask Caleb. See, Caleb, I was right. You are going to be our Santa Claus. I was looking at the OMWBE website and you are the person who we contact for link deposit. See, I knew you were going to be the one. You are the one, Caleb. Get us past the banks. Is there a lot of success right now with the link deposit program?
Right. The program doesn't help people get loans. It helps people who have existing loans pay less.
Right.
And so if you do have an existing loan, there's not really a barrier to access on there in that sense. We just enroll a loan as long as we have funding available in the program, and we currently do. So there's, in a sense of, yes, there's a lot of success and that loans are we can send them into the program right now. I think we have about $125 million in loans in the program currently, but we have availability up to $175 million. So there's still more, about $50 million left in the program if other people do want loans.
Okay, and then I was going down your link deposit information and it shows the participating banks.
Mhm.
Are those the only banks that they would have to already have existing loans with in order for it to decrease the amount of the interest?
Yes.
Or what about the SBA EIDL, or
Mm.
let's say the PP, part of the PPP doesn't qualify and they have another bank. Could they possibly get that linked up with link deposit?
The loans do have to be with participating banks. So it can't be with a bank that's outside of the program. If you can convince your bank to join, it's not a very large process for banks to join, but they have to be willing to enroll link deposit programs, link deposit loans into the program in order to participate. And those are the only ones that are currently participating in the program, and it would have to be a loan with one of those banks. If it's SBA guaranteeing a loan at one of those banks, that can also work, but it does have to be a business loan from the participating bank to the certified business in order to be eligible for that.
Okay, so I went ahead and put the OMWBE link deposit loan information on the chat if you're interested, or if you already have an existing loan and would like to, and you have the certification and you would like to be able to lower your interest rate, because why not? Why wouldn't anybody want to do that? And then take a look at the participating banks on the website. And Caleb is the person that you would contact for more program information, and his information is right there on that website as well. Any other questions for Caleb today?
Yeah, this is Mizan. Thank you, Caleb. You guys do such a good job. I have gone through the process and it's very good, and you guys are very helpful. Thank you again. The only question that I have is, how did you come up with that 1.32 million?
That's set by the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's their program. I think it started out as a lower limit. I think it started at $750,000, and it's increased as inflation has increased. I think they were trying to, from when the program started, they looked at how inflation went up and they increased it to that number. I don't know. I mean, in terms of why it was originally set at that amount, I don't know.
And do you know that may be adjusted in the future, coming near future?
In the near future, I don't know. I would imagine that limit would go up sort of a pace every 5-10 years or so, just to reflect inflation. I don't know if they would plan on decreasing it any time in the future.
Caleb, isn't that number tied to the SBA standards?
The 1.32 million, I think, is actually a little bit higher than the SBA standard. I want to say the SBA standard is slightly lower than the US DOT's standard. A lot of the US DOT programs do tie back to the SBA, and where if they do make modifications, they're slight. And again, I don't remember the SBA standard off the top of my head, but I do want to say that it's a little bit, I think it's 750.
Yeah, it's 750,
Yes.
Caleb.
But I think there is a difference between the SBA and I think SBA probably does not consider 401k.
That is true.
Correct.
Yeah, so there is a difference. It's not the, it's orange and apple comparison.
Mm-hmm. It's slightly different, yeah. But essentially, for the average person, because your home is excluded, and also the value of your business is excluded from that calculation, most people will be able to sit underneath that limit.
Thank you. Thank you for great job.
All right, any other questions for Caleb? Okay, seeing nothing in the chat and hearing nobody or not seeing anybody also unmuting themselves, I would like to thank everybody. Caleb, thank you so much for being here with us today, for the information that you shared. We're very thankful for your time with us. And for everybody else that has participated, thank you so much for your participation.